So now let's uncover the different methods and ways that you can do user testing. So first up, how? Well, there are many different methods and techniques you can use to test your prototypes. They can be conducted in person or remote, and they may be moderated or unmoderated. They might be in groups as well. But before we dive deep into the specifics of user testing methods, there are some differences that you want to sort of figure out first. So that first difference would be sort of like remote versus in-person user testing. And during in-person testing, you'll be in the same room as the user while they test your prototype. And this has several advantages. Not only are you able to control the testing environment and keep distractions to a minimum, you can also really sort of like figure out where your user would most likely interact with with your design or product or whatever it is. So you can focus on that environment and you can directly observe your user. So you're really looking for facial expressions, their body language, and any verbal commentary that the user makes when they interact with that product. You're kind of just you just have to be super analytical and write down literally everything. This gives you the most sort of like valuable firsthand insight into their experience. Now there are downsides to this. Sort of like in-person testing can be super time consuming, expensive as well. So keep that in mind. And then there's the flip side of the in-person user testing, or I guess the opposite, which would be remote testing. And remote user testing really offers a less expensive, more convenient and alternative to in-person testing. But you'll have sort of like little to no control over the environment. And while you're testing your prototypes, you can also conduct moderate or unmoderate remote user tests. So we're gonna explore some of those right now. So moderated versus unmoderated user testing. Um, what is that? Well, moderated remote user testing is a good sort of like middle ground between in-person and completely unmoderated remote tests. Live remote testing allows you to observe your users over a video call. For example, you can use a screen recording app to capture the test, kind of like how we use Zoom. There are a bunch of other types of technology that you can use as well and services if you don't want to use that one. And this might be super helpful for all of us, considering the world that we're living in right now, and trying to limit the amount of people we see. But also, it'll really help out with budget and whatnot, and it's a lot less time consuming. And this also really matters on what kind of prototype you're working with or what your design project is. You can do either or, but like let's say like if you're doing a physical product design type of thing, in person usually is the best because you can really focus in on how the person interacts physically with whatever your design is. And let's say if you're doing a poster as well, usually like observing I think would be really helpful, but also doing an interview. There are like so many different ways that you can do user testing, and it can be through interviews, observing, moderating, anything really. You'll then sort of like interview your users, and you can do this by verbally doing it through online or through Zoom, or you can do it through like a survey, really whatever works for you or you think is best. And this is really to gauge how they feel about the concept. Maybe there's like a product or feature they'd be that they might suggest. incorporating or utilizing or a visual element possibly or information, whether you're designing a poster as well. Um, Something you're really looking for here is, does this have the potential to solve the user's problem? That's really the underlying question that you're trying to ask. A second form of testing that works really well, it's kind of like a compare and contrast, and it's called A/B testing. Sorry, A/B testing, that's it. Um, and it's really used when you compare two different versions of a design. So this can be quite early on, or it can be about a specific sort of interaction or feature or whatever it is. And it can be used at any stage during the testing or prototyping or whatever it is. Whether you have like paper prototypes, or if you're making a digital product, like fully clickable ones. And in A/B testing, you'll really create two different prototypes, test each version on different set of users. Um, so if you have a lot of people that you're considering testing, this might be a good option. A third method is called usability testing. And this is pretty similar to almost like it's like a real life kind of storyboarding to see the journey that your user will go through while using your device. So this is a really crucial method that can be used repeatedly throughout the process. Usability testing really shows you how easy your design is to use or to interact with. Um, and it's usually an observational exercise. So you'll ask your users to complete certain tasks or ask them what they think about something specific um, within your design, and you'll observe how they do so. And throughout this test, you'll see which aspects of the design cause the most problems for the user, as well as which aspects for the user were the most positive. And when you're doing this, you'll really identify some usability or interaction issues, which you'll be able to fix in your next iteration of prototyping. So those are really some of the most important methods that I see in sort of user testing. And let's say you choose one of these methods. So how would you go about conducting it? And let's say like sort of in the context of a Zoom call, if you're doing it digitally or virtually, and then like maybe in person with a friend or family. Um, so yeah, let's go over how to conduct it. So first off, you want to set an objective. This is the very first thing you'll really need to do is have something clear and concise. So what do you want to learn from user tests? What questions do you hope to be answered? Setting this clear objective will really help you build the right kind of prototype and choose the most appropriate sort of like user testing method. So sometimes this can come before or after your method is decided. Then going into your prototyping stage, you may already have a prototype ready, but if you don't, build one so you'll know what exactly you want to test. If you're in the very early stages of testing an idea, definitely stick to the low fidelity prototypes. And then once you've decided on your concept and everything like that, get into the finer details, sort of like information architecture and those really small details as well, and styling and stuff like that, that you'll find within your higher fidelity prototypes. So then the third would be create a plan, and for the sake of consistency, it's really important to create a plan for your user testing. This should really include your objective or question and what you really want to learn. So almost like an outline for everything. And depending on your chosen method, you might also kind of want to create a script. Then fourth would be recruiting participants, which can be kind of difficult, but I'm sure everyone can find at least one person they need. And hopefully they'll be in your user group, but for the purpose of the exercise, it's totally okay if they are not, and there's just like a friend or family that you have around. Then 5 would be gathering all of the equipment that you need. So figure all that out during your planning stage as well. Um, and make sure that you have everything you need to conduct your tests, whether it's like screen recording on Zoom or whatever it is. Just test to make sure that you can do that. And then 6 would be document your findings. So throughout each user test, be sure to document your findings. You'll really need a thorough record of each test in order to analyze your observations and compare the results of each session. So really make sure that all your goals have kind of been met, and make sure that you're not just testing for the sake of testing. Try to figure out how this can improve your project. And also, um, don't just test once. You remember my anecdote from last week where that really became a problem later on. So once you're testing, sort of like figure out what you can learn from that and then implement it in your next level of prototyping or whatever it is before you reach that final design. And I'll also be linking sort of different or more in-depth exercises or forms of the exercises that we have covered in this lesson for whichever ones you decide to do. So thank you and good luck.